In this video, we're going to review negative powers. Any value that is being raised to a negative power can be made positive by taking the reciprocal of that base. So x would be x over 1, and the negative power can be made positive if I reverse or take the reciprocal like this. Now, if my negative power is already in a fraction, I don't necessarily need to take the reciprocal by placing a 1 up in the numerator if the numerator already has a value. I'm putting this 1 here as a placeholder. So since I have a negative power here, that basically means it needs to go to the other position. You need to take the reciprocal. So if you're in the numerator, you go down in the denominator. And if you're negative and you're located in the denominator, you need to come up to the numerator. Now 2 doesn't have a negative power, 8 doesn't have a negative power, but they are multiplying times bases that have negative powers. So let's rewrite this question here by making these powers positive first before we simplify. So I'm going to leave my 2 and 8, but my x to the negative 12th will become positive if I move it to the denominator, and my x to the negative 5th will become positive if I move it to the numerator. If I fill in these invisible multiplication signs, it might help you to better understand how you can break up the problem in order to simplify it. I'm going to simplify my numerals, and then I'm going to simplify my like variables. So I only have one simplification possible here, but I actually have two simplifications that are possible here. When you are dividing like bases, the exponents are subtracted. So I'm going to get 5 minus 12, which is technically a negative 7. Now if I leave it in the numerator, it would be a negative 7. But if I wanted to move it down to the denominator, I would get this, positive 7. And typically when you are simplifying an algebraic expression, you always leave your powers positive. Let's try another one. In this question, the entire denominator is enclosed in parentheses, is being raised to the negative third power. So unlike this one where I kept the 8 where it was, in this fraction I have to take the entire term here and move it to the numerator to make it positive. And if I do that, there'll be nothing left in my denominator. So now I have 1 times the quantity 4x cubed. So technically, I just have the quantity 4x cubed. So when you cube a quantity, technically what it means is I have 3 of these bases. So not only am I cubing the x, but I'm also cubing the 4. So you can multiply it here by writing it out the long way, or you can simply distribute this power of 3 to both of the powers here. So 4 to the third times x to the third is 64x to the third. Let's take a look at another example. Alright, so I have 2 terms in the numerator here, and only the y has a negative power. And I have a 2-factor term here, base in the denominator, but it has a positive power. So I'm going to leave that alone, and I'm going to take this y, and I'm going to move it down below. So 2y quantity cubed times y to the first. So now I have to evaluate this quantity here, so I leave my numerator alone. And I'm going to get 2 cubed and y cubed times that additional y, which I brought to the denominator, which gives me x squared over 8. And then when you multiply like bases, you add the power. So I know I didn't write it, but there is a 1 there. So that gives me y to the 4th. Let's take a look at one more. Okay, so my entire numerator is in the wrong location, right? That's what that negative power means. And my entire denominator is in the wrong location. That's what that negative power means. So I'm just going to take the whole reciprocal of this fraction, and everything remains the same except for, except for this power, because that's the one I'm performing the reciprocal of first. So quantity x to the fourth y negative 2 raised to the positive third power. Okay, and now I'm going to do that for the numerator here, quantity x to the negative 1 times y to the positive 2 power. Now before I go flipping and changing these negative powers, since they're inside a group, I want to get rid of these parentheses first, because I only want to flip the people that have negative powers, or the terms. So I'm going to distribute my power here, and I'm going to get x squared, x to the negative 2 over y squared. And in the denominator, I'm going to get x to the 12th, y to the negative 6th. And now I can flip the pieces that have negative powers. So this factor has, and this factor has, but these don't. So this one is staying put, this one is staying put, this one is coming down, and this one is going up. And don't forget, when you move the power, the sign changes. So now I'm multiplying like bases this time, and I'm going to add those together. And here I'm multiplying like bases, so I'm going to add those together. One last one. Alright, hope that video helped.